to you. And we're going to talk about story marketing and story sell. And it's going to be a very different type of training because Laura is really going to involve you and pull you in. Not going to be a lot of slides. You'll love her style. For those of you I don't know, my name is Terry Maxwell. I'm founder and CEO of Shiftco. I also spend a large part of my time running a portfolio of purposeful companies called Share on Purpose. And our most well-known brand is Succeed on Purpose. So I'm delighted to be here. We also offer free training and free networking events as a service to other conscious entrepreneurs. So we've got lots of ones coming up. Feel free to join us. And if you're in any of the hubs that we're in, we'd love to have you join there as well. So I want to introduce Laura to you. Laura is magic. I met Laura at a Happy Neighborhood Project networking event, which I attended because it's in Hawaii, and that is my future home in a couple of years. Lisa and I will be retiring in Hawaii, and if all goes well. And so I'm like, well, let's start meeting people in Hawaii. And so I attended this event, and everyone knows I'm a big fan of networking, and I really like the Happy Neighborhood Project as a networking mechanism. And man, like she just jumped off the screen, and I was like, I've got to know this girl. And there was she just had some magic. So she's an international award-winning keynote speaker. If you've ever seen her videos, she's amazing. She's a podcast host. She also helps other people learn how to speak from stage and learn how to carry their voice forward. She's also a stand-up comic, and she brings comedy in such an authentic way, in a writer. Her current website is Storyforth. And she's going to put in the chat another website. It's kind of the stealth version of her new brand, which is going to be launching here shortly. So Laura, welcome. Before we kind of talk about the first item on the agenda, which is really what is story marketing, I just wanted you I'm going to change this up and put you front and center. Just tell us about you and tell us about your journey, and then let's talk about story marketing.
Oh, what an amazing group of people. I was taking notes on what all of you do, and it's just blowing me away. Like, what a cool array. Thank you so much for being here. One of my favorite quotes from the Indian poet Rumi, it's kind of a creepy quote too, but when you think about it, but it's what you seek is seeking you, right? It's looking for you. And I believe I'm here, and we're all here today because you're seeking to tell better stories. You're seeking to empower your voice, empower the voices of your clients, and grow because of that. I used to be too scared to speak at all, to do what I'm doing right now, just introduce myself, would cause a nervous breakdown. In fact, it caused a nervous breakdown once. And that led me to really a catalyst of change in my life, because living that way, living in fear, to use my voice, to share my story, was exhausting. I don't know if any of you have ever had that feeling where something is just weighing on you so much and it becomes so hard for you to keep going forward that it's exhausting. And at one point you just break. And I knew that a change had to happen for me. Ironically, as someone who's deathly afraid of public speaking, I grew up with a severe stutter. So we talk about finding our voice in a metaphorical way. For me, it was very literal. Ironically, I found my freedom on a stage with a microphone, telling my story, stepping into that fear and owning it, stepping into the shame of stuttering, all the humiliation and embarrassment that I had experienced growing up, and it liberated me. I do believe that what you fear most can actually set you free and lead you on the path to become most aligned with what it is you're doing. And it sounds like all of you are really aligned with what you do. And I can tell just by how you introduce yourselves that you're very passionate entrepreneurs. And I know that's who Terry loves to work with, that's who is a part of Shiftco. And I'm really honored to be a master teacher for them and to be here today.
I love it. And Laura, one of the things that that we talked about, and I'm just going to put this question up here real quick. When we were talking about your course, and I'll tell you guys more about her course on Shift Code, which is absolutely amazing. She really has done that course well. But the idea of authenticity, not everybody's comfortable with their story, yet story marketing is consistently being proven as a more effective way to do marketing. So from your standpoint, what is story marketing?
Yeah, for me, story marketing, it's really simple. It's the technique of applying key storytelling elements that I'm going to review with you today in an intentional way to express the how of the lives of your clients, how they are changed because of the work that you do with them. So,
So,
yeah, go
so
ahead.
give us an example. Tell us a story, if you don't mind, of somebody that you helped, so we can really anchor to what that is.
Yeah, I would love to. In fact, I'd actually like to read you a little story because this is going to tie in with all of the elements that we're going to be sharing today. And while I get to that, like, would you just share in the chat, like, what do you most want to get out of this today? Like, what are some of the challenges you're facing that you hope to overcome when we talk about telling stories?
And I'll read a couple of those while
Okay,
you're
thank you.
looking it up. How to best tell a story, and I know you're going to cover that.
Yeah.
That's one of the things people want to know, how to best tell a story, finding what resonates with our audience, drawn to the word concise.
Mm,
Using stories to connect quickly. How do you do that?
awesome. How
How
does
to get engagement from your audience, how to speak at all levels, connecting authentically to the type of people that I want to help with the stressful experience of moving. I bet there's some stories there.
I love that. Uh, okay, I want to share this story with you. This was a company, actually, it's a local health center, Hamakua Kohala Health, and they were on a mission to have a big capital campaign to expand. And the CEO of that company was meeting with bankers to try to get them to write some checks to help them with this fundraising campaign that they had. And when you think about bankers, the language that might come to mind is a language of money, facts, and figures, right? And we've all heard that cliche, facts tell, stories sell. But do they? Well, this was put to the test on the day that she met with the bankers. I had helped her write some stories to tell of some of the clients they served. And, someone had mentioned being concise, right? You have to be concise. And I was forced to be really concise in crafting these stories because I couldn't use a lot of details, even the clients' names, some of their patients. We're not allowed to use that. But we wanted to tell stories in concise ways that would actually just illustrate how they're helping. So here's one of the stories. And this story actually uses a framework and a template that we'll be sharing with you today and includes a lot of the elements that I want to make sure that you have today as well of how to tell a concise story with impact. All right, no name here, right? Okay, and I titled this The Man Who Never Smiled. There once was a man who never smiled. Every day he looked in the mirror and was reminded of what he didn't have and couldn't afford. He never smiled because he'd lost all of his teeth. Because of that, he lacked confidence and it was difficult to him to secure a job. He lived in poverty. He never imagined that one day he'd be able to receive the dental care he needed. Then one day, he discovered Hamakua Kohala Health Center. They offered him a sliding scale, a payment plan, and assurance to receive care despite not having health insurance. Because of that, he finally was able to get dentures. Because of that, his confidence grew. He applied to more job opportunities until finally he secured a job and pulled himself out of poverty. Now he smiles all the time and surprises himself at just how social he's become. People can't even believe he's the same person. He's a regular at an open mic night. He never imagined he would one day have the confidence to be singing his heart out in public with so much to smile about. So if you can imagine, the bankers in that room hearing that story, expecting, her to maybe have a PowerPoint with some facts and figures. Instead, she told this story that had an emotional connection with them. And they pulled out their checkbooks that day. And what they told her was just keep sharing these stories, share these personal stories of how you've helped. And I believe that's the most important switch is instead of, this company talking about how great they are and what they do, right? She's instead empowering who they serve. And that's really the big switch, like making them the hero of the story.
So I want to really go back to this point because I frequently help people prepare for pitches to raise money. And one of the first things that we do is say, open your story, not with your bio or your background, but let me tell you why I do this. And I want to talk about Fred. And here was Fred's situation. And, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, no more than 90 seconds, you've just told the story of how you've transformed your target market's life. And now what happens is the investors have context. So when they're looking at the facts and the figures, they're now looking at, wow, there is a way that I can actually invest in this company and make a difference. So how do you actually do that? I know that's really what your practice area is, but how do you actually do story marketing?
Yeah, we focus so much as entrepreneurs on our why. You hear that a lot out there. Make sure you're in touch with your why. And that's really important. And then we talk about our how a lot. Then, okay, what's my why? Why am I doing this work? And then how do I do it? And we often overlook the who. And I think focusing on the who we serve and empowering them is incredibly important. And to me, that's really the essence of marketing. Marketing sometimes gets kind of a bad connotation. We talk about being too salesy as a challenge we want to overcome. I really love Seth Godin's marketing definition. And if you haven't read him, he's really brilliant. He has a book called This is Marketing that I really love. Here's his definition. Marketing is the generous act of helping someone solve a problem. Marketing helps other people become who they seek to become. Right? So if you look at it as a very generous act that you're giving to this who, right? The who that you serve, and how dare you not, give them what they need to grow and become who they want to be. I think that's a really important place to start. But I'd love to share with you now, Terry, if that's okay. I have it broken down into 5 essential elements of telling what I call it's a heart method of marketing. So you're always feeling like you're sharing these stories that come from your heart, because that's really connected to your who, right? You love who you serve. And I think when you're sharing these stories like from your heart and from that place, it's always going to have that impact. Are you ready? Yeah. So again, no slides, because I really believe I'm kind of old school. If you can't tell, I've got an actual typewriter here, so I'm super old school. But I do believe it's really important to take notes and be more engaged. The feedback I got from a workshop that I just did with no slides, they said, I really paid more attention, I think, because I had to take notes like back in school and write things down. So if you don't have a pen and paper right now, here's your chance to make sure you go and get that so you can take these notes. So the 5 essential elements of marketing your story to make sure that you include, and this is my HEART method. So it's an acronym, HEART. The first one is a hero. Hero. The most important thing to remember is that your clients who you serve are always the heroes of the story. Often we want to make ourselves the hero. It's really tempting. We just started this whole business. We're awesome. We want to have all our accolades on there and our degrees and certificates and everything. But really putting that hero front and center as your clients, that's where the other people that you're going to serve, your potential clients, they want to put themselves in their position, right? Not yours. So empowering them as the hero is incredibly important. This part has a second, because a second part to it, because every good story has a hero and it has a villain. Right? The villain is extremely important. Alfred Hitchcock said that the better the villain in his pictures, the better the movie did. And even to this day, if we look at storytelling in terms of the movies that are out there, the movies with the really good, complex villains, they do really well. But what is the villain when we talk about marketing? Would anyone like to take a guess in the chat? It's not necessarily a who, but how do you think we'll define turn over the problem? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. The problem you are solving for those heroes, for those clients. The villain is a problem. And here we go. Like the stronger that problem, like the more stakes that are involved, the more you can highlight that problem, the more effective those stories are going to be. Can anyone pick out the villain of the story that I told, of the man who never smiled? Who would you say the villain, or what? His teeth. All right. Lack of confidence, poverty. Absolutely. Poverty or healthcare system, right? It can be multifaceted. A broken healthcare system. Yeah, absolutely. So often the villain is not a who. It's the bigger picture of the bigger problem that you're helping people overcome, right? In my case, it's not only empowering voices for my clients. I would say the villain is often self-doubt, also lack of confidence, right? Maybe lack of clarity of what they want to even say. Right? That's the first one. The second is empower the hero. Again, empower the hero. So in this, we're going to dive a little deeper. And how can you make your clients' stories amplified? Right? How can you amplify them? So again, thinking about ways to empower your hero. I think one of the most effective ways is to collect testimonials. Make sure that you collect those testimonial stories. Ask their permission. And we're going to learn how to take those testimonials and fit them into a storytelling template that make them really great stories to share. Whether you're at a networking event, whether you're giving a whole presentation, or just some web copy up on your site. Make sure that you are empowering that hero. Number 3 is amplify the stakes. Amplify the stakes. Ask yourself this question. What does your potential client have to lose by not working with you? Right? What would happen to that man that never smiled if he didn't find that health center that could help him? Right? So ask yourself that question. And then the more we amplify the stakes, the better the story, right? The more invested people are. There's a reason most Disney stories, it starts with often there's an orphan or someone becomes orphaned, and then things just get a lot worse right away before they get better, right? Because that draws us in. It's a lure that hooks us. So amplify those stakes in your story. The fourth is relatability. Relatability. So when you're focusing on that who, really know your audience of who is out there and what stories are going to really relate to them. If you think about your avatar client and what are their problems, where do they go? What kind of books do they read? So you can craft your stories to really relate. There are whole story universal plots that automatically we can relate to. And if these can apply to your story, that can work really well too. For example, rags to riches story, you might immediately think of Oprah's story. rebirth, some kind of literal or figurative near-death experience that was a catalyst for positive change. It's a very relatable story if that fits in with your mission. Overcoming the monster or slaying the dragon, right? Something really bad, that villain gets eliminated because of working with you. And the quest, right? A seemingly unachievable goal is reached because of working with you. These kind of universal plots are immediately relatable. So if you can make sure your story falls into one of these, that can work really well. And 5 is the transformation, the fifth element. Oh, I love that movie. The fifth element is the transformation, which is the result, right? You need to share the result. So that's the gift that you are giving to your clients of how you have overcome that villain for them, solve that problem for them. So if you go back and you look at these 5 essential elements, I kind of sped through them. I usually spend like an hour on this, but we only have an hour and I want to make sure that I share this template with you and you have time to work on it. If you go back and look at these 5 elements and circle the first letter, you'll see it spells heart. So you can remember it. It's an easy way for you to remember to include these elements. Any questions so far on any of this?
Let me recap. So H is for hero, and tell us again what E was.
E is empower that hero. Make sure to empower them. Find ways to empower. Yeah.
And A was amplify the stakes. And
Yes.
so is that like the contrast of what would have happened if, they hadn't had the breakthrough or the solution or something like that?
Absolutely. Like things get worse before they start to get better because of working with you. Yeah. And the more you can amplify that. For example, a friend of mine owns a CrossFit gym, right? And I worked with her and she identified her villain was really apathy, laziness, diabetes, obesity, death, all of these things. And if she can show clients that, came to the gym and really changed their life and extended their life and became healthier, that's really important, but also focusing on what would have happened in their lives if they hadn't made that positive change to improve their health. That can really hit home to someone because they can see themselves in that too. And if I don't do this in my life, there's this sense of urgency, right, to want to solve that problem then. So in a way, it's a call to action.
Love that. And then R was relatability, so that everyone could see themselves in that story. And you did a great job with that. And then T is transformation, to show the impact of how the hero actually transformed by working with you.
Yeah, absolutely. The transformation is so important and people want that resolution, right? Because all great stories are going to be basically a rise and fall of action. And in the beginning, you're kind of keeping us hooked, like, oh, I really hope this person got what they needed and solved that problem. In the end, it's going to be this relief, right? This relief that, oh, I'm so glad. And then we want to be part of that transformation. You want your potential clients to see themselves in that success and want to buy into that success. So that's really important to include.
And we will take a couple of questions from the audience, but I want to illustrate this, Laura, because when we met, I don't know, it's probably been a year and a half ago. And in the Hawaii Honolulu Happy Networking event, I remember you did this, and you did it in like, I don't know, 45, 60 seconds. You said, hey, the best way to tell you what I do is for me to tell you a story about someone I helped. And you went through this, and I was crystal clear on what you did, why you did it, how you did it. And you didn't talk about yourself once. And again, it was like, I don't know, a 60-second intro. So when you introduce yourself, what do you say in a networking event? Like, is there a standard story, or do you pick different stories, or how does that work?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that. I think we've all been in networking events and everyone's kind of bobbing up and down, back when we were in person, and you're trying to remember who's who. And often it's hard to stand out in those events to be memorable. But I believe that every time that we have an opportunity to speak in front of people and to share what we do, that's an opportunity to be memorable, right? To really share from your heart and to change someone's life, possibly, that is there listening to you, that needs your services. Right? And the best, most effective way to stand out, I believe, is to not stand up and do what's expected, which is normally to start with your name, say what you do, your website, your tagline, all of that, right? To tell us just the very basics. And if we were going to look at that as a graph, it would be very linear, right? You're taking us from this point A, who I am, to point B, right? My tagline, my website. But instead, if you think of it as an arc, again, as a story, and there's a rise and fall of action, and you start right in with a story of how you help someone, right? That is going to stand out and be memorable. And then at the end, you share your name and your tagline and have a call to action. I believe that can be really effective. First of all, no one else is probably going to do that. And secondly, you're going to like have everyone's attention right off the bat, right? Sharing that way. Any questions on that? Oh, all right. Well, I want to share with you now because we don't have a lot of time. It's going by fast, but that's the beauty of it. I think storytelling. Oftentimes, we think we need to be writers. We need to be creative, right, to tell these stories. Who was it? I think Mark said that his son thinks he's a bad storyteller, right? But it's really very scientific. And if we follow a framework to make our stories concise and include those 5 elements in there, we're really clear on the hero and the villain of the story, then it's going to have impact and it's going to be very memorable. Just like Terry remembers, and I don't actually remember that event, but Terry remembers a story that I shared about a client instead of talking about myself. So how do we do that? I don't know if any of you ever did Mad Libs when you were a kid, right? Where you're filling in the blanks, right? I see some heads nodding. This is very similar to that, where we're just filling in the blanks. This is how simple it can be. And you're going to witness right now how effective it is. All right, so get out your pens and pencils. We're going to work through this template, and then you'll have maybe a couple minutes to fill it in on your own. And then we're going to share our stories, like if you're comfortable doing that. And you'll see how fast it can be, how easy it can be. And then you can use this template for all kinds of stories you're going to share about your clients, even your own origin story, if you'd like, which is what I did when I shared today. It can really grow from here or become a 60-second elevator pitch if you want to keep it to that as well. All right, is everybody ready? Good. All right. So here's my no fail template for this. It's just 6 lines that we're going to complete the sentence. So first, take a moment to think about a client's story, someone that you have really helped change, helped slay that dragon, solve their problem for. I'm sure someone probably comes to mind for you. All right. So you're going to put yourself in their shoes right now. The first part of the first sentence is, once there was. So everyone could just write down, once there was. And you'll see I use this template for sharing that story. Once there was a man who never smiled. Right? And when I told my origin story a little bit off the cuff, it wasn't as polished as I normally would want, but like once I was too scared to speak. Right? That's what I shared today. Right? So it could be if you're sharing about yourself, your origin story, why you do what you do. It could be you if you'd like. But I invite you to think outside of yourself a little bit now and think about a client's story. Once there was. That's just setting the stage, right? Every day is the next line, the first part of the next line, every day. So every day is where the beginning of where you're going to start building up those stakes. right? Either the stakes are almost like the ordinary world, the same things happen, kind of a Groundhog's Day sort of thing where, every day, that they're just living in fear, or they're not making the change in their life that they need to make, whatever it is, you're raising those stakes. So I think in mine, I said, every day he had, he lived in poverty, he lacked confidence, I couldn't get a job. I'm building up those stakes. So this could be as long or short as you want. Until one day is the next part. Until one day. So here is the catalyst for the change, right? In the story I shared, until one day he found the health center that would change his life, right? So until one day. And this could also be the breaking point. In the story I shared about myself, said until one day I had like a nervous breakdown. I was exhausted. I couldn't take living in my own fear anymore and not being able to speak. Okay. Until one day. If you have a hard time thinking about the stories, sometimes this is a good place to start. You start with that moment of change, whether it's a story from your own life or one of your clients, and then work your way backwards. Okay. The next line is because of that. So here's where you're starting to have some momentum, show the positive change that happened because of finding you, because of slaying that dragon, overcoming that villain, because of that. And this part is so good, we repeat it twice, right? So because of that, and then because of that again, right? Because we really want to emphasize this transformation, like this positive change that's starting to exist. And then the last part is until finally, until finally. So here again, you're kind of bringing us home with the gift of that transformation and leading us with a positive change that happened. In the story I shared, until finally, he had so much to smile about, right? I think I ended something like that because of all the positive change, right? So he found Hamakua Health Center. Because of that, he applied for jobs. He smiled more. He gained confidence. Because of that, he secured a good job. He pulled himself out of poverty. He did open mics. He was singing all the time until finally, his life was happier and changed. What's great about this template too is it's going to force you to be very clear and concise, right? Because some storytelling can ramble on, and there might be 3 or 4 different stories that you're kind of linking all together. And when we force ourselves to be concise and maybe have those 3 separate stories, when we really know the who of the story, it's going to help us do that. Guilty as charged. Yes, clear. All right. Any questions on this template?
I'm just curious of one thing.
Adam?
In our business, I'll make it very general. In our business, we're selling a service to a business that then uses that to help somebody else, right? So there's a little bit of that disconnect between who are you telling the story to? Do you tell them how they help the people that they help, or do you tell the story of how they're helped, or do you switch it up? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, you have the power to control that, really. So when you're saying there's a bit of a disconnect, you could eliminate that disconnect and begin the story at the point that you want to get. Sometimes beginning closer to the end is going to make it more concise, right? So make it really as easy as it can. The minute there's confusion in our stories and how we're marketing, there's confusion in that potential client or buyer, right? So the easier you can make it for them to get through that storytelling arc and really understand the hero and the villain, the easier it's going to be. Right? So are there ways you can think that you could do that?
Yes, I think you're right. It's the timing of when do you enter the story. You don't
Yeah.
have to enter the story per se at the beginning. You can
Right.
enter it at the point that it feels like I can get to what I'm trying to convey to the client and
Yeah.
give them that more effective story. So picking that right point is critical, very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if you think of that until one day, like what was that moment of change? Like where is that element? And then work a little bit backwards just to ground us in that setting. That can be really helpful too. So yeah, great question though. I think what would be, let's see, we only have like 15 minutes left. Goodness, it goes by so fast. But I do see, let's see, I see a question from David Gilbert.
Yeah, I got a question. So if the problem is not clear, like you
Mm,
know functionally what you do, like let's say you're selling coffee at like a Tim Hortons, Dunkin' Donuts, whatever, like the coming up to buy a coffee, right? So you're buying, they're providing coffee in a cup, and you're buying coffee. You're going off on your way. You don't necessarily have a problem like, oh my God, your life is gonna implode if you don't have that coffee that minute. Um, I use that as a bad example, a bad analogy for what I do, but trying to figure out, okay, I know what I do for the people, my clients.
yeah.
I don't know what the problem is
Okay.
because they need, like, when they need what I do, they need what I do. They don't, like, they're not going to need it tomorrow, the day before, they need it like now. So, I don't know what the problem is.
Mm, okay.
Like
That's,
a life coach could be,
yeah.
you could be a certain place in your life and, oh, I'm not really focused, I need help. There's a clear problem, right?
Mm.
Um, that's what I've always
Yeah, it's a
thought.
good question. Well, I don't know about you, but if I don't get my coffee in the morning, there's a problem. There's a big problem. But no, even with that, if you look at, getting coffee, like you're in a rush, you don't have time to make coffee. Like there, you think about who it is that fast food, Tim Hortons is really serving, right? We want a cheap, decent cup of coffee on the road, right? And you're solving that problem for them. If there's a sense of urgency, can be created, sometimes that can help boost that villain or problem. So for what you do, voiceover work, do you need voiceover work right away, right? Are you like the market, you need this particular voice. For you, it's your voice, right? That you're marketing to them, right? So if you get clear on how your voice stands out from the other voices, and even, go back and ask some of the people that you've worked with, what were some of the challenges that you face? Like, why did you choose me? Right. And sometimes a problem there's something there. There's a reason that they chose you rather than anyone else. Right. So it's how could you fit into what they needed in a unique way?
Yeah,
Like
I mean,
that's still solving.
I
Yeah.
guess it's a little different if it's like auditioning for something when that's a choice, right? There's 200 people auditioning. They picked, Sally that day. That's not really so much a problem per se because it's a lottery almost. It's like they decided that day that they liked that. But
Yeah.
in a lot of other cases, it's business needs something like it's like they need to produce, I don't know, they need a website, right? They need to be able to communicate to the world. Okay, so then it's just a matter of who provides the best service or the best value or whatever it may be. There's qualitative measures. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah,
I
it's
think
just
getting clear on that villain, like for example, if they can't find the right voiceover, that's a problem. If there's too many to choose from, right? There's so many
yeah.
people out there that they're going to audition, right? That's a problem. So you solve it by making it easy for them because you're awesome. And so, right? So you could think about it that way. I know Terry is really good at this too, like kind of defining that market and how to differentiate, right,
Okay.
yourself.
Okay.
Terry,
I,
did
I
you
don't
want
want to
to?
take up the rest of the.
Oh, no, it's okay,
Yeah.
There
but
were
this might help
actually
other people too.
Yeah.
there were two that were put in the chat that I think are great. One is when you can't find the right voice for your explainer video, that's a problem, because then you don't have a way that video never gets done because you don't have the right voice. I thought that was spot on, Adam. And then Kim said that a business needs a voice to fit their brand. And some people don't like their voice, and they would rather have another voice be the voice of their brand. And I think both of those are great examples.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other
Fantastic.
questions, and then I want to make sure that I have the last 5 minutes, Laura, to tell everybody about your course on the platform, which I absolutely love.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions in terms of how to practice this?
I was curious, did anyone fill it out and would like to give us an example and share? Anyone brave enough to do that? We'll pretend we're on the backseat of the car on a road trip and you filled out the Mad Lib. Yeah, Kim, you raised a hand?
Yeah, I'll do it. So
Okay.
this actually happened yesterday, so it's kind of
Oh,
top of mind. Once there was a woman who wanted to build a business. Every day she knew there was a business opportunity, but could not clearly talk about it. Until one day she decided to build a brand that would help caregivers and seniors. Because of that, she was accepted into a launch accelerator until finally she was able to help others profoundly change their lives.
nice.
That's great, Kim.
Yeah, nicely done. Yeah, I can really pick out the villain in that, and you empowered the hero and led us through. Nice. And how long did that take you to write?
I did it while I was taking
Yeah,
notes.
so a couple minutes, right? In a couple minutes, we
Yeah.
can add so much value with stories. Anyone else? We have time for maybe one more. Anyone else like to share?
Janine.
Yeah, Janine.
Okay, so here's a little bit of my problem. So this is more of a question.
Okay.
Because I provide a service that is, it's not like this whole life-changing thing, because it seems like this is really geared toward coaches, and I know I don't want to coach people anymore. So that's like in the past. And but I have a client story that I love to tell, so I'll try to fit it to this, but you can tell me if I'm not doing this right,
Awesome.
because
Go for
the
it.
everyday thing is the problem for me.
Okay.
So once there was this woman who had 2 children, and she and her family were planning a move out of New York City. And every day she stressed about how she was going to be able to do this because her children were very upset about the upcoming move to an alien place. Until one day she realized that she could get some help to make this move. And because of that, she felt a huge sense of relief from the stress she was feeling. And because of that, she knew that she could spend time with her children, helping them through the transition of going to this new place while the move was happening. And until finally she was able to walk into her new home with her children and explore the backyard into a home that was completely finished. The beds were made and they could just arrive home.
Nice.
That's
Yeah.
oh,
I felt
okay.
her relief. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. So
Spot
it does
on,
work.
Janine.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
and that is such a great story. And I think that's the point, Laura, is
Mm.
rather than talking about what you do or why you do it, tell a story of someone that you served.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought you did really great with the everyday building up her stress and some of the details there. It doesn't matter what it is, whether you're a life coach or you're selling coffee, right? It's really those story. As long as it draws you in and has these elements, emotional connection, is still going to engage us. I recently did this workshop for data scientists wanting to use storytelling more. And one of the stories started out once there was an algorithm. And honestly, it was this really fascinating, cool story of this algorithm that, this scientist had developed, and it was the hero of the story. It was really cool. So yeah, it could be anything. And I love how you fit that in. Awesome. Any other questions? We might have time for one more question. You good? Yeah,
Laura,
Mark?
I have a question based on like media and medium and tone. So we have this, we have this super cool story. What does it look like in terms of what you should think about when you're in front of a live audience, 500 people, versus
Mm.
when I'm writing an email, versus like being in front of a camera, not seeing any audience, but just being able to talk to the camera? Like, are there any things you've seen, like in terms of what it looks like with tone in media?
Mm. Yeah, that's a really good question. The course that I have up on Shiftco is actually about empowering your virtual voice. And I have some tips on there, what to do and what not to do. But I think the most important thing is to remember that everything tells a story, whether you want it to or not. Right? We're telling stories. We're looking at behind the scenes at everybody's lives, right? And we get these little windows. So how you show up and how you tell it and the tone, if it's aligned with the story and the branding that you want to do, right? And we didn't have time to really get into this, but the brand is really like that gut feeling that you get when you see someone's logo, and you can associate with that. So I think if how you're showing up and how you're delivering, it still reflects that, I think will be really important. But of course, sharing these stories, I've taken this template and done a much longer presentation, sharing a lot of different examples with the template mixed in with all kinds of things, if it's in front of a big audience. But again, it's knowing that audience, right? And making it relatable for them, right? If they're like techie people, maybe show some videos or, those kind of, so you're relating it all to them and remembering to show them love, give them a gift, right? Because every time you get up to speak, you're really giving a gift. And when we give a genuine gift, like a story, there's no fear, there's no nervousness, right? There's excitement. So I think if you lean into that, it's going to help too in crafting.
Right on. Awesome. I'll check out your course. That's awesome.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks.
And that's a great segue to tell everybody about the course. For those of you that are not members, you might not realize, but we build our content repository from master teachers all over the globe. And we work with the master teachers and license their content and serve it up to our members as part of our service to them. And Laura's course is amazing. And it's empowering your virtual voice, which is how do you translate virtually, since we know the virtual world is going to be with us. But what I loved about the course, in addition to learning how to be engaging in a virtual space, which as you can see, Laura does naturally, it's also how to use your authentic voice and inspiring clients to take action. Because when you're speaking, whether it's a networking event or a live event or podcast, ideally you would like to have business come from that. And so her course is on the platform, and then her website is listed here. But Laura, I know you're right in the middle of a very, very exciting brand change, and I've been privy to watch that unfold. I believe you have, a link that you can share people where they can see before anyone else what's coming and some specials and things like that. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I just shared in the chat first my Calendly link. I'd love to offer you all, if you want to sign up for a little free consult, I can help you craft your stories a little bit more, answer more questions. I know this has been really down and dirty, quick and fast. So I'd love to, dive a little deeper with you and help you some more. And so the link is right there to sign up for that. That would be 30 minutes. And then I'll also put in my new link, and that goes to, you'll get some free tips. I've got some little videos there, and it goes to all the new branding that Terry has been instrumental in helping me with. I believe that sometimes we teach, what we're still working on, what we need to learn as well. So I'm still working on, empowering that hero and getting really clear on the villain too. I think we have a tendency as entrepreneurs to focus on ourselves in the beginning because we work so hard to build it and get so excited about it, right? But once we make that switch from me to you, it is a game changer. So yeah, I'm I'm sharing that. Oh, it's actually a video to my, I've got 6 public speaking mistakes that I just really don't want any of you all to make. So you can, you can go to that free course and watch it and get a little sneak peek at my new, site. Toastmasters. Yes. Oh my goodness. I was just in the big district contest. Toastmasters is a wonderful place to learn how to be a better speaker and leader, because leaders are speakers and there's no way around speaking, right? I've tried for years and sooner or later it catches up with you. And it's a skill like anything else. Toastmasters change your life. Awesome, Kim. Fantastic.
Leaders are speakers. Leaders are speakers. That is a really important point. And I believe conscious entrepreneurs, we are going to change the world through the impact of our businesses, and we influence and we lead. So I love that, Laura. Love, love, love that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please check out her course. It's in Personal Fuel. So for those of you that are not members, we'll probably make this available also on our YouTube site as well. We'll send you a link to the recording for those of you that are members. This program will obviously be available to you, but her course, where she's got videos and she's demoing all of her tips and tricks, her course is amazing. It's in Personal Fuel. You can find it there under skill building. So Laura, thank you so much.
Thank
And
you. It's been so fun.
one of the things that we'll be also adding later this year is bringing you on to our coaching team where you can coach our members with the speaking as well. So for those of you that are members, that will be coming in the second half of the year. Laura will be one of the ones joining our team, and she's going to help people as part of it, in addition to having her course on the platform. So Laura, you've touched my life so much. You've made me a better leader and a better speaker. You've made me more conscious of the stories I'm telling. So thank you guys so much.
Oh, thank you all. Thank you all so much. Make sure you save the chat. I always forget to do that, but save the chat so you have everyone's information. And yeah, I'd love to connect with you all more. So I hope you sign up to talk to me more. I'm in Oahu. So yeah, we can connect. In
And
Hawaii.
we're going to send the chat out to everybody. So
yeah. Oh, awesome. That's great, Terry. Thank you.
thank you again,
Aloha.
Laura. Thanks, everybody.